Trading this morning is getting everything from what you have got. There's a book on the bookshelf, funny enough, which is written by, I'm going to say Dan Kennedy, but I don't think it is. Might be J. Abraham, which is all about getting everything from what you've got. But I'm going to put this into a perspective, I don't think that's the name of the actual book. I'm going to put this into the perspective of recruitment and how you can basically get everything or get more out of less from what you're doing at the moment. So there's loads of different analogies we can use of this or examples that we can use of this, but certainly what I would say is the main point behind that message is getting comfortable where you are currently uncomfortable. If you are not asking the questions that you should be asking, you come off the phone and, fuck, I wish I'd asked him, I wish I'd tried to turn him into a client, or I wish I'd asked him that second question rather than just rushing off the phone. It is that point where you are uncomfortable. Those are the individuals, when they get comfortable asking those questions, are usually the people that will put an extra deal up, an extra placement in a quarter, in a 6-month period, in a year, and the better you are at it, the more likely you are to put those bills up. Okay? It's all about getting uncomfortable and then that becoming comfortable. Everyone was uncomfortable at the start when they had to speak to their first candidate. If I asked anybody in this room to do a candidate catch-up call right now, you'd all go, well, yeah, that's a piece of piss. All I have to do is ring up the candidate. But the first time you did it, you were fucking terrified. So you just got to put yourself out of that comfort zone. So I'm going to ask for some examples here, but I'm going to give you some to begin with. So one is when you have a candidate that you are interviewing, consistently asking those candidates, what are they hiring for? Okay, I think, wasn't somebody here, someone sent me an email and said, I've contacted the 50 people on the CRM, this is an email previously, and none of them are hiring. And I was like, well, 50 individuals within 50 different companies, let's say it was 40, and none of them are hiring. I was like, bullshit. Okay, so it's because we haven't asked the questions. The candidates that we've interviewed, we haven't asked them if they're hiring. It's not about you putting them out, it's about you helping them. Okay? If everyone on this table was sat around and you're managers, the hardest part of being a manager in recruitment is obviously developing and progressing and improving both yourself and the team, but it's getting good people into your team to be able to fly. And if you haven't got those people, you are just a recruiter with a job title as manager, which unfortunately is the majority of the recruiting industry. I'm a manager, but I've got no team. Or I'm a principal, but I've got no team, or whatever they want to call it. Managing consultant, but I manage 2 people, of which, neither of them do any work and they just sit on their ass. So that flipping candidates to clients is an important service for the candidate. Okay? Point number 2, when you have a search, you have an opportunity to contact people and ask them who they know. The more airtime you get with people, the better relationship that you have with them, but also the opportunity that you have is, hi John, I'm currently recruiting. I know that you're a chief executive in a building products business, industrial services company, healthcare business, packaging organisation within a private equity firm. I wanted to ask, I'm recruiting on a search, I've got a search that I'm working on currently, and it is for X position. I wondered, being the fact that you've been in the industry for so long, who we would recommend that I should approach. Oh, and John, well, I've also got you on the phone, as and when I come across superstars, who should I keep you posted on? Even asking private equity investors, which I've only had 3 ever come up to me with a candidate and said, oh, actually, Alex, I do know somebody. You should reach out to this person. Brilliant. That's 3 more candidates in my process. But also, I'm going to ask them the question. I'm recruiting for this role for this private equity firm. Who do you need in your opportunity? It's a different approach than, hi John, it's Alex calling from Raw Selection, specialising executive search, working exclusively with private equity. I wanted to reach out because I'm working with a fantastic profile. Now, John, wanted to ask you advice. I've got a search and I think you might be able to point me in the right direction of somebody. Okay, so it's utilising it, and people, it makes them feel special. If somebody asks for your advice, it makes you feel special, so utilise that. And some people will say, no, that's your fucking job, you go do that work. That's absolutely fine. Brilliant, I'll move on to the next person. I've just caught you on a bad day. Okay? So making sure that we're asking, who do you know? You can ask candidates, who do you know? You can ask potential prospects, who do you know? And of course, you can ask your existing clients, who you know as well, because it just builds rapport, builds relationships, and they might go, do you know what, it's funny that you say that, because actually we're about to bang, and here's a search. You never know, but the more communication you have, it isn't, have you got any jobs, have you got any vacancies, can you give me some jobs? You know, that kind of conversation outside of that builds relationships. Of course, one of my favourite questions, as and when I come across superstars, what types of profiles would you be interested in hearing about? And asking as many people as possible in a leadership hiring capacity that bloody question. Okay, that should hopefully be comfortable for you, but I know for a lot of recruiters it isn't, because they won't ask because they're scared. But making sure you're asking that question consistently with both candidates, with both prospects, and also with your clients, because you'll miss out on stuff. And they'll hire for things and they won't tell you, because you didn't ring them, you didn't ask them, they didn't think of you. They thought of somebody else. Okay? Point number 4 is going and asking people for advice. So we mentioned, obviously, if you're doing a search, who do you know? But maybe asking a prospect for advice, maybe asking candidates for advice. That could be on an existing search, that could be on something completely different. You know, it might be that you see something in their profile and you ask them for advice. That is also a level of building rapport. I saw that you did a communication qualification, or I've seen that you've done X, Y, and Z. I see that you've come from here to get to where you are. Not typical in private equity to see somebody come from not within investment banking, management consulting. How did you get into that position? What did you do? It builds relationships, it builds conversation, but also you can then flip that into a question of, okay, brilliant, well look, happy to, you know, I'm really, thanks a lot for sharing that, because that helps me and gives me inspiration as and when I come across superstars. Okay, you're always leading it back into how can we ask questions, how can we get information. And then point number 5 is, when you're doing BE calls, we're all doing, hi John, I wanted to reach out to you, you're our superstar candidate. Let's do it as a sniper approach. You've got your emails that you're sending. I understand that you have this portfolio company and I have a chief executive who works for a competitor. Use that on your voicemail, because it separates you from, unfortunately, everyone else in this bloody office. Okay? So, hi John, I wanted to reach out. I know that you have X portfolio company in your portfolio of companies, and have a profile that is a chief executive of a direct competitor. Just wanted to highlight them to you in case you're making a change or you have a need in that business. An excuse to speak to them. They may come back and say, no, we're not doing that at the moment, but putting that call in just solidifies that second part. Okay, so it's that extra call, extra conversation from there. Number 6 is an obvious one, but whether we call it obviously your engaged pitch or retainer pitch, is pitching. You won't believe how many people have a prime opportunity and they go, yeah, well, our contingent service, and don't actually pitch the bloody business. You know, at the worst case scenario, you want to pitch both. We have 2 services, Mr. Client. One is we offer new clients. One is our contingent service, which is our, you know, anyone within our direct network and contacts will share them with you. You're likely to receive maybe 1 or 2 profiles. They won't be the best in the industry, but they could be right. It's worked for us many times. Or you can go with our proactive approach, which A is cheaper, B is hammering the market and making sure you get it placed, but C comes with our protection perspective. You know, asking for the business, which is the bit that everyone gets scared of. You're scared of taking down the vacancy, or you're scared of being on the phone call, you're scared of making the call, you're then scared of being on the BD call, hoping they don't answer. You're then scared of taking down the vacancy, you're then scared of pitching the business. Okay, there isn't much after that. So once you get comfortable with all that levels, you've got it. You've got to put yourself out of that comfort zone, and you've got to get everything from what you can. Okay? And point number 7, a little bit different. When you get an objection, or when you get something that you've taken somebody through a retainer pitch, asking the question why. That's helping you understand. Why is that not of interest? No, we're not interested in doing that. No, we don't work retained. That's interesting. Why? Well, we had this happen, that happened, this happened. The objection is they don't want to go retained. The objection is they don't want to waste money, they don't want to waste time, they don't want to work with somebody that isn't going to deliver the goods. Nobody's against retainers, they're against not getting a result. Because otherwise everyone would be against working with recruiters. Well, I don't work with recruiters because, you know, I worked with them once and it didn't work, so I don't do it anymore. You know, my car broke down on the way to work, so I walk everywhere now. You know, it's not about that. It's about what is the actual objection. So asking the question of why. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. Can anyone else think of any other examples of getting everything? I know that's a fairly hell of a list. Getting everything out of what you already have.
I'd say when they say they're not hiring, when you do have a call, typically on a cold call, not then asking them the follow-up of, and they say they're not hiring, they tell you whether A player or they don't say A player, and then asking who else within your network, so trying to get referrals off the back of that.
Yeah, so then, yeah, absolutely. So asking that secondary question, not just getting brushed off the phone.
Also in that same situation, asking where do you see your hiring needs being in 6 months' time, 3 to 6 months' time?
Yeah, can I ask that question? Absolutely.